Hello again, I'm Ian, and I just finished recording a 30-minute version of this video where I forgot to actually turn my microphone on. So hopefully we'll get through this a little bit faster now that I've had time to accidentally practice. But today we'll be doing the machine I finished 2 or 3 days ago, I can't remember, which is being retired in 13 hours, called Solidstate. It's getting replaced with Chatterbox, which is apparently a Windows machine, so definitely do that one when it comes up. And let's take a look at the difficulty. Not super hard, but people definitely found root, unsurprisingly, more difficult. So, first things first, quickly nmap it. So, default scripts, show versions, or detect versions, and then run a different script, vulners.nsc, which uses the vulners.com database. Slightly different from searchsploit, and I don't know if it's any good. I've never actually found like a cool exploit through it, but it can't hurt and it doesn't slow it down, so whatever. This script does depend on having the -sv flag set or option, so definitely use that. Output all formats, name them solid scan, and that is the IP of the box we'll be hacking today. So we see SSH is open, an SMTP server, POP3 and NNTP, and I don't actually know what NNTP is. I'm going to have to Google that at some point. And a web server. So now that we see a web server, we'll instantly try to go to it. See if we can see anything interesting. And apparently the theme of this machine is a award-winning security team and a slick default website. And we see this sending a message form, which you can play with in SQL map or burp and see if there's any vulnerabilities there, and a custom domain web server or mail server, which is probably something to do with this James stuff here. I'll just spoil it for you now. There's nothing interesting here if you SQL map it, so we won't. But since it is good practice, we will very quickly force browse it. Okay, gear search -h, because I can never remember the options. Alright, -u URL, that's easy. And extensions, we'll try PHP, HTML, JS. Not that there's going to be anything interesting. And that should be it. Now, very quickly, the reason I'm using this different word list rather than word list /deerbuster /medium whatever, which I will go to another tab and look at. So there's a difference between these two word lists. I don't have it on this machine, but on my usual machine, my preferred word list is the force browsing one I'm using here, and this one appended to the end of it. These ones were generated by crawling the internet and going to every site and following every link and keeping track of the directories, right? So these are all publicly accessible or publicly listed, right? This force browsing one is from a Git repository. Oh god, what's it called? Brute force, yeah, brute force database. It's from this brute force database Git repository, and this directory list was generated by crawling GitHub and looking on source code for URLs, and then using that to generate the word list. So those are not necessarily linked anywhere on the internet. Like, it could just be a /dev directory that exists on the server but isn't referenced anywhere, and stuff like that. And I find it tends to find interesting stuff much better, so I always make sure that's the first word list I use. Your mileage may vary. Anyway, we got it running. I'll spoil it now. there's nothing interesting here. This has nothing to do with the web server. So now we'll start looking at vulnerabilities and stuff. Vulners.nsc has this nice scoring metric, but if I recall correctly, these are like non-specific Apache bugs that are like 1 byte overflows and information disclosures and stuff like that. They're not readily exploitable or like instant wins, and since this is rated as an easy box, it's probably not going to be this difficult. So we'll look at other stuff. It finds another one on the SSH port, which, I mean, you could look at 5.0 is not a terrible rating, so it's definitely worth looking at if you have nothing else to be looking at. It doesn't find anything for SMTP, but one of the reasons I run this vulner script is it uses a completely different database for vulnerabilities. So we will, of course, check the normal stuff. And we see searchploit actually does find exploits for Apache James mail server. And it's for our exact version, and it's an RCE. So that checks all the boxes, and we'll definitely check that out. So we'll copy that here. Oh my god. Let's look at it in Vim. It's pretty. Alright. This exploit works on the default installation of Apache James server. Example pass that will automatically execute a payload on some action. So this is a way to get a payload executed on some action on the server. It works because the default installation of this version of Apache James has default credentials, and you can log in know what exactly this does, but I know it'll get run every time bash starts. So the next time someone logs in on SSH and their shell starts, it'll run our script. Now, this isn't super useful to us, actually, for issues I'll get to when we get to that point. So, and because I personally think it's a really bad idea to just run a script because fucking Nmap told you to, we'll look through it and quickly see what it's doing. So, it doesn't say it up here, but in the actual comments it says credentials to the James Remote Administration Tool, default creds, root. Alright, cool. What's the Apache James remote administration tool? And we don't know, but it says, oh look, connecting and port 4555. So then it creates a user and does the directory traversal thing. And where does the payload actually go? Sending payload. Oh yeah, it sends the payload as an email to the user we just created. And presumably somehow that puts the payload actually in this file, which is neat. Alright, so, but now we have default credentials to Apache James, and we know what port to connect to, so let's just do that. 10.10.10.51 or 4555. And our login is root, and our password is also root, and oh look, it works. So what I initially tried was just using this RCE and having it start a netcat session with me, just reverse shell, and that works for user, but it doesn't easily work for getting root. There's probably a way to do it because you do still have RCE, but it's less obvious. And this only triggers when somebody logs in or otherwise runs that script. And we put it in /etc bash completion.d because that runs anytime someone starts a bash session, so it's likely to happen a lot. You could put it anywhere, but it still requires someone else to do a thing before you get your shell, and that's not guaranteed to happen. And if someone else is on the machine, who knows, maybe they'll notice you, I don't know, running every enumeration script 15 times or whatever. But it does give us the information we need. Oh, look, default creds to the mail server administration interface. And here's the fake user we created and its weird directory traversal, presumably filled with some default payload. Or I actually didn't run it in this version, I ran it on the 30-minute silent video I just made. But when you run it and you give it, say, a netcat reverse shell payload, it creates a user, puts it here, whatever. Next time someone logs in on SSH, you get your reverse shell as whatever user just logged in. But more interestingly, back to the mail server, we can see all the users with an account on this mail server. And if we go down here, we can set passwords. So let's just try that and change John's password to bestpass. And it works because we're logged in as the mail admin. Or not the mail admin, but the James mail server root. Mindy. And that also works. And I'm impatient, so I'm not going to do the rest of the users. But you can just change the password of all the users and try to mess with them that way. So next step is checking our email. And if we go back to the nmap, wherever I put that. Oh my god. We see a POP3 server and an SMTP server. So we'll just quickly log into the POP3 port. We'll retrieve it and read it. And it says, "Dear John, can you please give Mindy a temporary password to log into her accounts?" Super handy. Because now we know we should probably look at Mindy. Mindy's got 2 emails. Welcome to the company. Welcome to our world-class security firm. Has her temporary password for SSH. So copy that again, I guess, and log in as Mindy. And just for demonstration's sake, let's quickly do the actual exploit and see what happens when someone logs in. And double check that it is still my... And very quickly set up a netcat listener and get out of that. And gotta tell it where to go. And good. Connects to the James server, creates a user, delivers a payload, and the next time someone... Oh, so someone else on the HackTheBox network just logged in. And dumb enough for me, they log in as... So if I SSH... I'll do it in a different tab. As Mindy with the credentials we just found. God, what are the odds someone logged in as root? I'm trying to prove that it won't work. We get an RBAS shell. And on our reverse connection, we do get a connection, and we're logged in as Mindy. So that will instantly give you a shell for whoever happens to log in. And that doesn't help us. So, Mindy is actually in jail. And the only stuff she can see, or the only stuff she can use, is the stuff in her home bin directory. Alright, cool. What does that actually entail? Oh boy. So, she has cat and ls, and env doesn't even seem to work. Alright, cool. How do we escape an RBAS jail? I had no idea, so I just searched. And that brought me to this very good slide deck from a talk given in 2016. Escape from Alcatraz, very good title. And what a restricted shell is, what it does, different names, blah blah blah. Alright, how you actually get out of it. Cool. So, can we... I just did the path thing, but we'll do it again. So, no, that's all the stuff we have is those 3 commands and our local bin and our home bin directory. What is our shell? Cool, that's our bash. What other commands do we have? Cool, cool, can't change directory. Damage doesn't work. Set does something. Can we export? Let's, whoops. Will it let us change our shell? No, also read-only. Cool. Can we copy a different shell to, say, our home directory? Nope. We can't move anything either. Can we write something? No. Awesome. So yeah, we literally only have those 3 things. Cat, env, and ls. So none of this will work for us. None of this will work for us. We don't have wget, so I can't pull something else. But on step 4, we do find some useful stuff. So before you actually log in, you can pass ssh-t and it will run a command as it's logging in. I don't exactly know where in the process this happens, but it does happen before the bash rc is loaded, I think. So we'll just exit ssh and try that again. I could just do that. -t bin sh bin bash, since we know it's bash. Try that. And no, we can't, because it won't let us use any directory other than our home directory for any command, which is awesome. So that one doesn't work. At this point, I was starting to give up because I couldn't figure out another way. But if we give it -t, no profile, this should tell bash when we log in, hey, just ignore bash.rc. And that happens to be where our bash keeps all its restrictions for our shell jail. So when we do that, we get a different... So that works. And if I had done the normal payload and just waited for someone to connect or logged in as Mindy, the reverse shell would work and it would come up as Mindy, but it would still be in the same jail because I didn't pass it that -t parameter to escape. Right? And there's almost certainly a way, I mean it's still RCE, there's almost certainly a way to get like a full escaped rbash escaped shell through the RCE method. I didn't go that route. I found an easier way, so that's the way I'll show you. Alright. So now, and of course, as I said, Deer Search isn't going to find anything. This machine has nothing to do with the web server. We'll just start a quick Python server. Go to temp, cd foo, and just again, I filmed this exact same video 20 minutes ago, but forgot to turn my mic on. So we'll just do all this again. Would you believe I made this exact same mistake the first time I filmed it? That's a Python script, and you would typically want to run both. So we'll just go through it real quick and see if we find anything interesting. Alright, we got kernel version information. You would throw this into Linux exploit suggestion and see if there is anything, but 4.9 is pretty new. Like, this is from August 2017, so probably not going to be anything super interesting here. If it was like 2015, 2016, maybe try Dirty Cow. We got nothing. Are root permissions in the home directories lax? Of course not, because then we'd just be able to any interesting cron jobs. Spoiler, there isn't, and you can't read them anyway. Right? They're not. Oh, these are world readable. But if there is an interesting cron tab entry for the thing we need, it's not readable to us, which I'll demonstrate in a minute. Alright, cool. Is there anything owned by root that's root executable and also world writable? So they don't count. And everything else is readable and executable but not writable. So it doesn't help. But notice it only checks /bin /lib /sbin /user. And then go down. We see no write permissions on basically anything. So doesn't really help us. And if you were just relying on this enumeration script, you might be hooped. Because was to run this, which is now something I include in every enumeration on any hack the box machine I do. So this command is awesome. This finds everything on the machine, excluding the device the device virtual file systems like /proc and /dev, I think. Owned by root. Permissions where the dash in front of the permissions means minimum permission, so it must at least have these permissions. World readable and world writable. And executable by root. You don't necessarily need to have this, but it's useful. That is a file, so no directories, and is also executable. And because find gives us a ton of ugly errors in the output whenever it can't traverse a directory, we'll just pipe all those errors to dev null. This command is the best. And we see on the entire machine, there are 2 files that are executable by root, owned by root, and world writable. So that's a good sign. And one of them is a Python script. And it's in the /op directory, which is probably why this linenum.sh presumably also hacking this machine right now. I am doing this on the live Hack the Box server, so there's other people messing about. So let's go check out that Python script. And again, I filmed this like 20 minutes ago, but normally this Python script would just import OS and delete everything in /temp, right? It just clears out /temp every couple of minutes. But it's not timed in the script. Like, the script's not looping. Something is calling the script all the time. We see it's owned by root executable, world writable, awesome. And presumably because the script itself is not looping and cleaning out temp, if you're going to do it, is something you'd want to do regularly. It's probably a cron job somewhere. And as far as I can tell, there is no way to actually find it from the cron tab, which explains why I didn't find it up here in the enumeration when it was going through cron entries. So next, find in files. So now that we know the name of the script, let's try to see if we can find the file that is invoking the script. This is connector rnw in root-e tmp.py. Oh my god. And pipe all the errors to dev null. So we can look for context and see if there is anything calling this Python script. And since we're not root yet, it's very. And I'll spoil it for you now. It just happens to find this sequence of bytes and a couple binary files, which is useless. It doesn't actually find it anywhere. So we literally have to take a leap of faith and assume that tmp.py is going to get called at some point. And I already set it up, so it will connect to us. So now we wait. And hopefully, right, to try and clean out /tmp. And when it does that, we should get a root reverse shell on our netcat listener. And then we'll finally be able to read root.txt. And now we wait. In the meantime, you could mess around on the website more, check out some of the other exploits that Nmap and that searchploit and vulners.nsc suggest to you. None of them are useful in any way whatsoever. You could go through the other email accounts to see if there's other interesting emails. You could find more enumeration scripts and prevest scripts and just try those. Oh my god. I think it's like a 5-minute wait or something. Hopefully not. Or maybe I just missed it because I didn't have the listener open. Please hurry up. Yeah, so what happened here when I was trying to prove that the payload from the James RC was useless, someone happened to be listening and doing what I'm doing now, right? And when they got a shell, we also got a root shell, and I can't believe the stars aligned for that. I've done this machine like 15 times trying to film this video and solve it, and that never happened, so awesome. Oh my god, I really don't want to have to edit out 5 minutes of dead space while we wait for this. Did I get anything wrong in that script? No, bin bash 1414. Or 1419. I'm still 1419. Oh my god, please. 5656. I have nothing else interesting to talk about while we wait. I'm gonna have to edit this. Oh god, thank god. Alright. Finally. So apparently, every 5 friggin' minutes, root runs that script. And when it finally does, we get our root reverse shell and we can finally read root.txt, which I'm not going to do on the video because that's cheating. And I already accidentally gave you Mindy's password. So, hopefully you learned something. And if you didn't, well, at least it's on tape.